Welcome to the podcast, Sleep, Pray, Drug, a place where we share our personal stories of suffering and healing in real time, on real budgets, and in realistic ways. If the title stirred something in you, made you pause, or sparked curiosity, stay. We are 4 sisters born into a proud Irish Catholic family, and over decades of triumph and trauma, the thread that once barely held our relationships together is being woven anew into a sacred circle of connection. A connection reborn through shared suffering, unexpected crises, courageous conversations, and getting real with ourselves so we could change our reality. This podcast is our offering to the broken, the brave, the burned out, and the rebuilding. Every week, we'll share stories of survival and what it means to heal in real time when the world doesn't pause for your pain. As more and more people are running towards artificial intelligence for answers, we invite you to walk with us with authentic intelligence for change. We're not therapists, but we hope you find this space therapeutic. And we're not experts, but we are experts at being human. We don't have all the answers, but our connection is an answered prayer. And this is where we begin. We are Sleep, Pray, Drug. Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to episode 1 of our podcast, Sleep, Pray, Drug. My name is Bridget, and I'm joined here today by my 3 sisters, Maureen.
Hi.
Colleen.
Hello.
And Megan.
Hi.
Because this is our first episode, we are asking for some grace, as this is completely new territory for all of us. We do not consider ourselves tech savvy or attention seekers, and certainly not experts or even role models in how to do life. But we feel called here, together as sisters and as mothers, daughters, and women. Life is really hard. And as Eleanor Roosevelt said, we cannot tell from day to day what may come. This is no ordinary time. And it is not at all. I know you all can sense it, the unease. You can see it in the discord and vitriol on social media. And you can feel it, the division and the disconnection. We feel it too. We are struggling to navigate a world that, quite frankly, is totally out of balance. We are being divided by wars, politics, religion, class, opinions, and even facts. The feeling in the air is one of fear, tension, and uncertainty. And if you are someone who is feeling powerless or hopeless and are using avoiding and numbing as a means to cope, we understand. And amidst all of this chaos, we sisters have leaned into one another. We are learning as we go, who we are as adults and individually. Our answer to this uneasiness, this frenetic and chaotic pace humanity is barely existing on and cannot maintain, is to seek real connection at all cost. Connection to ourself, to our family, and within our community. And we have found some certainty here. And we hope to create a community and connection beyond us with you, the listener. Our intention is to show up for one another consistently and authentically, and that has not always been the case. Between growing up and graduations to marriages, starting families of our own and new holiday traditions, through separations, divorce, career moves, and family fallouts stemming from silent treatments often lasting years. Between all of this, distance and division set in. We lived separate lives for decades, avoiding the root causes of how we had become so fractured. Isolated and alone, we existed in our own small worlds that we had carefully curated, forgetting that in reality, we belong to one another and exist together in this one precious world, and that we are much stronger and healthier doing life together, especially in uncertain times like the present. So if you are exhausted by all of it, if you are trying to function within the dysfunction, if you are barely holding on, if you have more anxiety than awe, or feel that one more notification pinging of bad news will bury you, you are in the right place. Because today you get to meet the cast of Sleep, Pray, Drug. And we know that you will find some comfort and certainty here, as we have. So who are we? Some brief context here. We are four middle-aged women born into a strict Irish Catholic family. We were raised in church pews and a modest house on a street called Westward Ho. We have four brothers, which makes 8 of us in total, and we range in age from my youngest brother, who is almost 48, to the firstborn Maureen, who turns 60 next year. We have 12 adult children between us sisters, 7 grandchildren, and we are all still heavily involved in supporting our kids because we all know the bigger they get, the bigger the problems they face become. We have worked in jobs as bartenders and baristas and have also navigated careers in management and education. We have worked in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. We volunteer in hospice and home care. We have very different styles in how we dress, our taste in music varies, and where we spend our time and energy has shifted over the years. We have experienced poverty and have lived paycheck to paycheck, and none of us would be considered rich. We have different spiritual practices and have found peace and comfort in different places and spaces. Our passions and politics may differ, but our commitment to our personal growth and collective well-being is unshakable. We do not come from money and understand that doing anything beyond surviving is both difficult and essential. The world never paused for our pain, and we continue to seek creative and healthy ways to cope, especially now, as much of our time these days is spent around working and caretaking for our beloved parents, whom we call Ma and Da. 2 months ago, our Da transitioned to hospice. And as his needs increased and the independence of our parents decreased, we have been faced with some of the hardest decisions yet. And they just keep coming. So we are in the middle of just about anything and everything on any given day. The one thing we all do have in common is suffering and a determination to not let it define us nor paralyze us. We are trying to do things differently, to heal in a way that brings change within ourselves and maybe even to the world. And that time is now. So why the title Sleep, Pray, Drug? Well, I'm a big fan of the incredible author Liz Gilbert. And Liz Gilbert wrote a book that became an international bestseller called Eat, Pray, Love, which was also made into a movie featuring Julia Roberts. So it's a play on the title of this book. Like many, I didn't have the access or ability to adventure like Liz did when she went on her soul's journey to heal. The first time I read the book, I was determined to follow in her footsteps. Take a year and travel across the world, eating, praying, and loving myself whole again. And then I intended to write a memoir on how I saved myself. The second time I read the book, several years later, I was in a confidential shelter for mothers with children who had to flee domestic violence. I had left my ex-husband, finally, after years of knowing that this day would come. And within 24 hours, I had traveled across state lines and landed in a place where we would be physically safe. I had no idea how unsafe mentally I was. And this time in my life led me to my rock bottom. My labels became homeless, DV victim, divorced, single mom on welfare, unemployed, sexual assault survivor, PTSD, addict, and petitioner in a contentious custody battle that would last 16 years. I would not have my eat, pray, love. I had sleep, pray, drug. I slept on a bunk bed, the bottom bunk, in a 300 square foot studio with my son for 2 years. Sleep was an escape from the hypervigilance of survival. I would wake up early and get him off to school, exhausted from simply existing. I would go back to bed until about 30 minutes before he would get dropped back off from school. I would toss on some clothes and a little makeup to present an image of a mother who had done something other than breathe and cry that day. That bottom bunk became a cocoon of sorts, and I would read the words and scribbles of survivors who had marked their "I was here" proof of life before me. I prayed. I started attending daily mass for the first time in 25 years at a Catholic cathedral within walking distance from the shelter. I would put notes that were soaked by tears underneath statues of saints or under the feet of Jesus on the wooden cross. This cathedral became a refuge for me. And I drugged. I had a history of addiction that I'd worked through, but at this time I was prescribed heavy opiates for chronic pain resulting from assaults. I was prescribed anxiety meds to subdue the intense and frequent panic attacks I was having every single day. And I was prescribed heavy sleeping meds to close the loop and get me right back to square none. I entered a program for sexual assault and traumatic stress survivors and moved into a confidential permanent supportive housing unit where we could begin to rebuild. And this was how it went: sleep, pray, drug, repeat. I began to wonder how people could ever begin to address their suffering, how I could ever begin to heal if every waking moment was focused on just getting through the day. When one is in crisis, they are not thinking about changing the world. And then the world was in crisis, and everything changed. COVID entered the scene. And within that next year, all of our lives would change beyond what we could have ever imagined. We were living apart in every sense of the word. We were a fractured family of space and time and distance. And judgment and gossip and brokenness set in. I had very little interactions with my sisters, whom I had considered my best friends growing up. We were all caught up in our own lives. We were all in survival mode. And there was no end in sight for this cycle of dysfunction and despair until December 14th, 2021, when my gentle giant of a nephew passed of complications due to COVID. And this death, the death of my sister's youngest son, Rory, a 21-year-old young man on the brink of starting his life, shook our family to our core and led to our deepest despair, which in turn initiated our deepest repair and the very foundation of this podcast. But before we get to this, I'm going to turn things over to my incredible sister, Colleen, or Dolly, as we affectionately refer to her, to tell the story of her baby boy, Rory.
Thank you, Bridget. I'm Colleen, though everyone calls me Dolly. Sharing this part of my story is never easy, but it's an important piece of who I am. In my 20s and 30s, my world revolved around being a wife and raising 5 beautiful children. Life felt full and purposeful. After my marriage ended, I spent 7 years in another relationship trying to hold on to a sense of family and stability. But when that ended too, everything shifted. For the first time, my kids weren't with me, and the silence in my life was deafening. I felt adrift without direction, weighed down by loneliness, and swallowed by a deep depression. It was one of the most painful seasons of my life. From 2014 to 2020, my life felt like it was in constant motion. Never steady, never certain. I moved through 10 plus different places, never sure where I would be from one month to the next. In the middle of all the chaos, my heart was pulled most by my two youngest children, Aislinn and Rory. Aislinn had settled in Colorado while Rory was with his dad in Seattle until he came to live with me in 2018. When Rory and I were finally together, our circumstances were far from ideal. We ended up in a cheap rundown hotel, calling it home for 6 months. These walls held more than just our belongings. They held my exhaustion, my brokenness, and the weight of feeling lost and uncertain about the future. I was drained in every way, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It was in this season of struggle that I made the decision to move with Rory to Colorado. It wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a lifeline. I was helping Rory settle in with his sister, trying to give them both a fresh start. But in truth, I needed that shift just as much. I needed space from the noise, the hurt, the tangled web of family dynamics that had unraveled so badly. At that time, I had little to no contact with my parents or sisters. The relationships were fractured deeply. We weren't speaking, and when we were, it wasn't kind. Gossip had replaced grace. The love, truth, and compassion that once wove us together had been lost. Things had been said, and things had been done, words you can't take back, silences that cut just as deep. And it felt like we were broken for good. Colorado became a kind of quiet, a place where I could focus on my two youngest children and put my energy into helping them find their footing. I had lost so much trust in family, and I was almost ready to write it all off. I thought maybe this is just how it ends, each of us going our separate ways. But even in that space of distance and silence, something deeper was stirring, something I couldn't quite name yet. Grief would come later and shift everything, but for a while, Colorado was the pause I desperately needed to breathe, reflect, and survive. December of 2021 arrived while I was in Arizona, spending a few weeks with my new grandbaby. During that time, both Aislinn and Rory came down with COVID. They were really sick, and I checked in with them constantly to make sure they were managing and didn't need to be hospitalized. Each time they assured me they didn't. By Monday, they both seemed to be turning a corner. I spoke with each of them that day, and for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of peace that they were on the mend. Then came Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. I tried calling Rory, but his phone kept going to voicemail. That uneasy sinking feeling grew in my gut. By about around 3 p.m, I called my daughter to see if she had checked in on him yet. Her words cut through me. Mom, Rory's gone. His body had been so depleted, so exhausted, that when he vomited in his sleep, he didn't wake up. He asphyxiated and was gone. My beautiful boy. And like that, everything stopped. The world I had carefully rebuilt in Colorado cracked wide open. There's no blueprint for that kind of loss. No roadmap through the hollow that grief carves into your life. My youngest child, my heart, was gone. And somehow in the middle of that devastation, something began to shift. The silence between my mom and sisters and me began to break. Not all at once and not perfectly, but grief has a way of exposing what truly matters. All the anger, the resentment, the harsh words, they didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that Rory was gone and I needed them. Maybe they needed me too. We had all been hurt by life, by each other. We were splintered, some of us barely holding on. But something about Rory's passing cracked us open and softened us. There were awkward calls, hard conversations, and tears, so many tears. But for the first time in years, we were trying. That loss didn't just bring sorrow, it brought clarity. And in some strange, holy way, it was the beginning of our healing. We were still a mess, still fumbling towards understanding, but we were fumbling together. So here we were, 4 Irish sisters, all scarred in our own ways, but still breathing, still standing. We slowly began to talk about the trauma we'd carried, the secrets we'd buried, and the masks that we'd worn for so long. We realized how much we had in common, not just the pain, but the resilience. The way we kept showing up for our kids, for ourselves, for each other. And somewhere in that messy, sacred unfolding, the idea came. What if we told our story? What if we gave other women permission to speak theirs? That's when Sleep, Pray, Drug was born. Not just a podcast, but a space for truth, for laughter, for grief, and for healing. We don't pretend to have it all together. We're still messy, still triggered, still learning how to hold grace and boundaries at the same time. But we show up, we speak, we cry, we laugh, and most importantly, we don't do it alone anymore. So if you're walking through your own mess, know this: you don't have to do it alone either. There's a space for you here just as you are.
Exhale.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
Thank you, Dolly.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Thank
I
welcome.
you.
know that's never easy to share that story. It's never easy to hear it.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
I feel like, I don't know, heavy, like you said today. Like this is heavy, starting with two of our rock bottoms right out the gate, um, is difficult and intentional. Um,
What would you say
I
as
think,
to the reason why you started with the two rock bottom stories?
well, the whole notion around for me is around connection through suffering. That's the fastest path.
It's
Yeah,
the greatest equalizer.
yes, it is.
And the amount of suffering in the world, like it's inescapable right now. I
Mhm.
just, I'm struggling, not just today, but I mean, I was out on my paddle board. Was that just yesterday? 2 days ago? Just breathing. And for a moment, I was like, there are bombs blowing up families in Gaza. Like, I don't even know how, as humanity, there's so much avoiding and numbing that has to just innately be happening for us to
Mhm.
exist at this time in history.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's
It reminded me of when mom was in the ICU and we went to the river. And I felt so much guilt for dunking my head and how good it felt to be under the water and thinking of mom being intubated. Like, how do we live with our
Mhm.
suffering? It doesn't go anywhere. That's where I'm
Well,
at.
also, I think that the amount of suffering that we have found that we've all had that we didn't even know about with one another, and that
Mm-hmm.
it being the greatest equalizer, not just in the humanity, but in our family. Like
Mhm.
when we started opening up with one another and really saying like this is the suffering I've been through and getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
like that broke down all the walls, it seems,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
you
right
know?
about that.
Mhm. There wasn't a hierarchy anymore of dysfunction. It was like, no, we are all surviving. We've all found ways to numb and survive the cards that we've been dealt, which haven't always been kind.
Yeah. We all,
Yeah.
like I said, we all did wear masks of certain types over the years of like we have it all together and everything's okay. And then you really get to know each other and you realize that that's not always true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Dolly. Um,
You're welcome.
as we stated, this is our first episode, and it's been kind of a clunky process, I think, for the four of us that are not, as I shared, tech savvy. We're coming from our own homes in different states. We have very active roles in our families, and we have been practicing this first rollout episode time and time again. and it never gets easier. Not in reading a story, which we've had to do because of the content is so heavy. Moving forward, there might still be scripts that we use, but sharing our lowest lows in a manner that we could get it out to you, the listeners. We just hope that you heard that in a manner that we intended. And the intention behind sharing Dolly and mine's rock bottoms is very intentional. When we thought about creating the podcast Sleep, Pray, Drug, it came out of, as I shared my rock bottom and some of the deepest sufferings that I had endured. And as I was trying to kind of re enter life, I was trying to balance holding that suffering, living with it, and also trying to let go of some of it, and also connecting through it with my sisters. And what I realized is that there's something very sacred around suffering. And in my experience, it's in suffering that all of the veils fall down, everything is stripped away. There's an instant connection around shared suffering. And I think today we can see it. I'm thinking of, the floods in Texas, the wars in Gaza, Ukraine, these images that we are bombarded with. There's an instantaneous, for me at least, of not comparing suffering, but just knowing what being in a space of suffering might feel like, but not even that, more about like, how can I connect with you? How can I help? And so we thought about sharing our experiences of suffering in hopes to connect with you, the listener, and in hopes that moving forward, we will hear some of your experiences. And yeah, do any of you want to say anything around suffering and connection in that pathway that we chose?
Well, I just see how the suffering of losing my child brought us together. And it's definitely something that can break down barriers in some ways, because we all have experienced it in some way or other, some maybe greater than others, but we've all been there. And it definitely brought all of us together, going through what I did with Rory and what we all did with Rory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I just think, I was talking with my sisters about the fact that as our walls have been coming down around each other and we've been getting to know each other better, that the most common and significant thing that we have in common is suffering. It's the greatest equalizer. It's the greatest thing that as human beings we all have in common. And we've learned a lot about each other and the fact of the type of suffering that we've been through. Not to say it's more so or less so than other families, but um, as four women, we really have had a lot of suffering in our lives, and it has really brought us together and close. And I'm hoping that we can do that for a greater community as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what we collectively have experienced, and in our conversations about ideas for the podcast or things to talk about or different topics to bring up. Our starting list is pretty significant, and I think it's just going to continue to grow as we really reflect on our lives up to this point in time and what we've experienced, and including the suffering, but as well as other, life experiences. I just want to speak to, I guess, our sisterly relationship during this time when we lost Rory. And I had returned to Oregon 3 years prior to that after being in Alaska for 30 years. And Dolly and I had been communicating and we were spending time together. My youngest was about a few years younger than Rory. And so there were a few times that the four of us did things together. And both boys were just kind of trying to find their way and their niche in terms of where their interests were. Did they want to go to school? Did they see working, and socially as well, making friends. And they kind of had some things in common that way. So we had spent some time together. So Dolly and I were at that point in time communicating, and I guess I kind of felt like I was, I don't know if liaison or not liaison, but the kind of in the middle, I guess, because I was in communication with the three of you, even though the three of you weren't connected with each other necessarily at that time. I just, thinking back, it's all, all that when something like this happens, the conflict that was going on, the fractured relationships, it's like everything just became insignificant to, we need to be here for Dolly and love her and support her and help her get through this, be by her side, regardless of what's happened in the past. It just all became insignificant at that point. I think for all of us, our whole focus shifted and everything just felt so insignificant up to that point in terms of the conflict that some of us were having. So, and like you said, Dolly, it really was, a shifting point for all of us. And
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, when this happened with Rory, I'm ashamed to say it, but I didn't even have your phone number, Dolly. I hadn't talked to you in ages. I had sat on the sidelines and judged you and criticized your life because I just thought, oh, she's just messed up, because this was in the middle of you moving so much and, just knowing what the limited bits and pieces I knew of your life were the chaotic pieces, or the things that would pass around in families, the gossipy things.
Right.
And I played a big part in that. And just knowing that you and Rory were living in the same town that I was in, and I never even saw you guys, it was terrible. And I'm so ashamed, but thank God for your forgiveness. But within that, I'm reiterating what Mo said, that the second I heard about Rory dying, I was in the car by myself and Bridget had called me, told me to pull over, and I knew it was something big because, we've talked about this as sisters, but for those that don't know, we have had 0 tragedies up until this point in our life, and we have a huge family, so the chances of that happening is really rare.
Yeah.
And we have 0 experience at that point of how to cope or deal with something like this. So I pulled over, and when she told me that, just all those images of me just being a total bitch, just flashed before me. And instantly, I just wanted to get to you. I just wanted to call you. I wanted to see you. I wanted to be your sister, which is what I should have done through all those years, So I'm sorry for that. But I'm so thankful that despite having to go through all this, we have what we do now.
I am too. Yeah, I thank Rory for that, because somehow His passing is what really brought us back together and solidified our relationship as sisters again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being away from all of you because I am the sister that does not live in the vicinity of you all. And growing up, Dolly, you and I, well, I was your little mini me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just watching you and Mo get ready to go out to the clubs or get ready to sneak out, to a party, or just thinking, I can't wait to curl my hair like that and use the blow dryer and wear what they're wearing. And I mean, everywhere you went, I wanted to be. And to have gotten so far away from that, Meg, what you said really resonates with me. And being raised in our Irish Catholic family, there's this whole concept of the clot out, friendship, loyalty, and love. And we all stood so proudly on that externally, right? Like
Mhm.
friendship, loyalty, and love. I will go to bat like to our core. And during this time, we were not living that. We were not in friendship, we were not in loyalty, and we were not in a loving space.
Mm-mm.
And when I heard the news from Mo, when you haven't processed a death or a tragic death, a sudden death, I think everyone probably reacts in many different ways. But like you, I started just having the cascading memories of in every way I had wronged Dolly and had wronged Rory by way of Dolly. And, I was there when Rory was born. I lived with you, Dolly, and with
Yeah.
all of your kids. And I think Rory was partially my roommate in the Winnie the Pooh tent downstairs, all of those years. And at this space, it was not those memories that came to the forefront. It was guilt and shame and regret because in that time frame, politically speaking, there was so much going on and social media was just highlighted and it encouraged division, similar to like what it's still doing today, where you can say something snarky and run away. No accountability, no, you're not looking at anyone. You're not there to hold the feelings of some nasty comment you might say. And that was what was leading. I get almost sick to my stomach thinking about things that I would not like look at myself and say, oh, that's going to come out of her fingers, like
Mm-hmm.
typing behind a keyboard and just bitterness. And what I can see in retrospect now is that we all had massive insecurities and probably shame and regret in our own personal lives. And at that point in time, you were the target.
Yeah.
Ugh. And so what I'm saying is that my insecurity and my pain was taken out in those interactions because I felt like shit about what was going on in my life. Shoot, I was in a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
It was that hierarchy of like who's got it worse or who's doing better than whoever else. Wherever that dynamic came from, I'm sure we will get through at a later episode of comparing our lives and trying to one up one another as sisters. But when I heard that, right past that guilt and shame, and I credit the experience of suffering with this, was that instant letting go, that instant not separation, that instant repair, connection, at least in my heart. Like that was the desire in that moment, was let this be a moment that we use to recover. Let Rory's death not ever be in vain. What can we take from this and that wasn't necessarily an intention, but that's how it unfolded. And I could see it in real time. And I credited Rory with that. I started praying to Rory immediately. At first I apologized and was like, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and Rory, please forgive me, you know, like,
Yeah.
and again, for you to have that grace to allow us to heal with you. That's why I think that our stories of suffering and connection are so strong because we've lived it. And I am so deeply sorry. Ugh.
I know you are. And I have forgiven all of you many times over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Thank
think,
you, Dolly.
yeah, I thank you. And I think Rory working so clearly in these relationships. And it's pretty brilliant. I mean, everything goes back to Rory, which is why I think it is appropriate to start with Rory's story
Yeah.
because he is all through the birth of this podcast.
I'm sure he knows, but it's such a wonderful thing that he had such a big impact on us. And I'm sure he will on other people too, through the telling of his story,
Yeah.
that he had such a huge impact on our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about what Meg said about, as a family, I mean, we had lost grandparents, aging grandparents, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the first really, significant loss in terms of how he passed, how old he was, the fact that he was a cousin, to all of our kids. And it was like the ripple effect, not only Dolly, you and his dad, but just siblings, his siblings, your siblings, all of our kids, the grandkids. I mean, it just really impacted so many young people.
All
And
the young cousins for sure.
mhm,
Yeah.
and all the conversations we had, with our kids and going to his service and just all the discussions surrounding, a burial service. A lot of our kids had never I mean, even myself, I haven't been to very many services at all in my lifetime. And it was just a real eye opener of, you know, yeah. But
And
it
what a
was
beautiful one it was.
It was.
It
Mhm.
It was
was.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah.
do you want to share, Dolly, around like the immediate grief and maybe like from the immediate grief in 2021, we're now almost 4 years when you found out.
When I found out,
Yeah.
well, it's hard to describe what it was like when I found out because it was it's such a shock to your body, to your system, to your mind, to everything that you can't almost even um, just find your footing anywhere when something like that happens. I was just out of my mind with grief, just screaming his name for I don't know how long after I found out. I guess those first few days were I had thankfully the support of all my kids coming close around me and you guys all coming close around me. And that's really my faith in God. And you guys are what got me through that time, those initial days and weeks after he passed away. We can talk about the helpline a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
How I think it was the second day after he had passed away that I had a horrible night and was just crying in the shower and didn't know what to do with my feelings and who to turn to. So I went to my Messenger app and made a group called Help and put all four of you, all three of you and mom on there to call and on a video chat. And I used that many, many times in the coming days whenever I was at that point where I just didn't know where else to turn to, that I would call you guys. And that was a lifesaver. That was definitely a lifeline for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if anyone
Mhm.
doesn't know, Messenger is an app within Facebook. And if you don't have someone's phone number, like Megan had said that she didn't even have Dolly's phone number and Dolly didn't have my phone number. And so the way that she connected with us was creating this group through Facebook that included the three of us and our mom. And when the call came in, when it comes in, you'll get a name will pop up on who's calling. And so when the call came in, all it said was help in all caps. Mm. And we answered. I mean, how do you not answer to a cry for help? I think that's a pretty universally human response, but it sums up so much of where you were at and where we were at as wanting to help and maybe not knowing how. But what you needed was just for us to show up
Mhm.
time and time again, just answer the call and just be present. And that help call group remains to this day. It will never, never come off of my phone. I mean, there's so much meaning behind it. We all know to answer that call. I'll talk about more in depth about my experiences with the help call because I experienced the death of my partner probably about a year after Rory passed, and that became a lifeline for me as well. But Meg,
Mhm.
I think you've said some really good things around the helpline, and Mo, you have too for sure, but just around the kind of sacred nature of it.
Well, the helpline for me was definitely it was a sacred phone call. It wasn't like anything you would get from anyone else. It was I legitimately need help. I don't know where to go, but I know I have my sisters and my mom. And so when that phone call comes in and it says help, I know we all do our best to answer it. I know I've had to use it too. And just to know in the back of my mind that I have that safety net, I don't know about you guys, but it gives me peace of mind that that is
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
there. That
Yeah.
if I'm going through it, which Lord knows I've been going through it, I can just hit a button and there you all are, with your arms open virtually.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's just beautiful. And I hope that, that's something that we want to, keep, that we would like to establish with this podcast would be this becoming like a help call for all of you. Number two would be to encourage everybody to have a help call. Your sisters, close friends who you can call when you're in just an absolute breaking point. But back to what we want to do with the podcast is, like I said, create a space where you're not alone in your suffering and that pretty much anything you've all been through, we've been through it as well. And just a safe space to come and to bring your sorrow and to bring your joy too, but bring your
Mhm.
sorrow and hopefully feel less alone in it. And we'll create our own help call here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the help calls have evolved over the last couple of years too. How, it started out one way, and not to say that that's no longer a topic, or that, Dolly, that you're done needing help from us on a specific, topic, but we've all used it for different reasons, whether it's grief, whether it's like, for me, it's just like, I need to put the scenario out there and get input. I need to know what my sisters might do or how to handle this situation because I get myself so indecisive, and everyone is always going to have an opinion on what you might need help with. And so that gets me even more confused. But the core group are you three in terms of the opinions and the advice that I truly listen to and respect. And I know there's even been times where someone will answer and, if things are if we're going through a calm period, it'll be, oh, who needs help tonight? And we can
Yeah.
kind of laugh about it.
Yeah.
So it really serves, multi-purposes and functions,
Mhm.
but it's extremely helpful because there's a lot of things that, oh, I can call this friend about or, run it by that person. But to have a core group, sisters especially, is pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you were saying, Mo, around just getting that immediate feedback or support. And I know for me, it laid the foundation for me to not only trust you all, but to trust myself again. I think when I lost my partner, that will come up later on and in some episodes, but I know for me it was really hard for me to express grief or to really share that I was in a low moment. I've always kind of been the sister or the daughter that kind of, I don't know that I held it together, but I presented, you know, the image of not really emotional, outwardly emotional. And when I needed that, it, the certainty of having you all and mom and to be able to see you all, that was a big part for me too, because there's even more vulnerability when someone can see you cry and when
Mhm.
someone is still holding space for you when you're crying or just mumbling through. But I'll never forget, like I told my therapist about it, I used the help call. It's been instrumental in me reconnecting with my ability to process
Mhm.
grief. And I thank you all for that so much because that is one of the most vulnerable things for me is to cry with you all. I don't know why, but yeah, to ask for that help and to have you all just show up in ways that is so unique to each of you individually.
Well, you can cry with me. We'll put that out there.
Yeah, I was going to
Yep.
say, I don't have
Me
issues with
too.
crying in front of you guys.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's my work I'm working through, but I think to bring it current, I mean, it's definitely a space I'm proud of mom when she makes a help call, like there's a lot going on with Da right now, transitioning to hospice and a lot of conversations and a lot of decisions. And I think for her to utilize it too, it's a lifeline. It's a
It is a
lifeline
lifeline.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
for all of us. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think before we close, Dolly, can we just bring it back to Rory real quick? And can I just
Yeah.
ask you, what do you think Rory would say about this podcast or about I know you're going to giggle because I'm super interested. I can hear his laugh already.
He would love it. He would love knowing that we're all doing a podcast together because he and I used to joke about doing one together.
Really?
Oh yeah, we used to joke all the time about doing like one of the ones where they listen to a song and do you know what I'm talking about? There are people that will
Yeah, their
review
reaction.
songs, their
Like
reaction to
reaction.
songs,
Okay,
and we would joke
reaction.
about the two of us should do that, listen to Eminem songs and have our reactions to it, and
Mm-hmm.
he would love that we're doing this right now, and I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would he be like, Mom, you're doing a podcast, like self-help? What?
Yes.
And make fun of
Yeah,
you for that?
he
Yeah.
would. He would give me a
Yeah.
hard time, but he would he would think it's really cool. He might not say
Mm.
it, but he would think it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I could, I'd like to just thank everybody, all you listeners, for spending your precious time with us. It does not
Yeah.
go unnoticed. We so appreciate you giving us the chance here and giving us time in your life. We hope that you have felt a sense of connection, or if nothing else, we just hope that you have felt less alone in your grieving and your struggling, what you may be going through today. Did you girls have anything else you'd like to say? I'd like to finish with a blessing. If any of you have anything you'd like to say.
No.
No. Okay. So I would like to finish with an Irish blessing. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. May the beauties of the earth and sky and sea fill your heart with lasting peace and contentment. Thank you all. Hope we'll see you next time.